Around the World Lit Audio. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Chapter 3. Full narration script. Channel intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter recap. In Chapter 2, the old man Melchizedek explained the personal legend, and gave Santiago to smooth stones, Urim and Thummim, yes and no, for the moments when the answer truly escapes him. Santiago visited the merchant's daughter he had been thinking about all year, and could not stop thinking about the pyramids. That afternoon he sold his flock. He bought a ferry ticket to Africa. He walked toward the water. Chapter 3. Tangier was not what Santiago had imagined. He had imagined Africa the way people imagine places they have never been, as a version of themselves, familiar underneath the surface strangeness, navigable once you adjusted to the superficial differences. He had imagined that being a traveler, having crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, would confer on him some quality of competence that would make the next steps manageable. Tangier was not manageable. He stepped off the boat into a city that was entirely and immediately foreign in ways he had not prepared for. The language was not Spanish. The food smells were unfamiliar. The streets did not organize themselves in the way that streets organize themselves in Andalusia. The people moved through spaces with the purposefulness of people who know where they are going, and Santiago did not know where he was going, and the difference between these two conditions was immediately and physically apparent. He stood at the port with his bag and his money, and his to smooth stones, and felt, for the first time since he had decided to come here, genuinely afraid. Not afraid of anything specific, afraid of everything in general, the fear that attaches itself to the person who has stepped outside the boundary of what they know and is standing in the open country of the unknown without a map. He found a small cafe near the port and sat down. He ordered something by pointing at what the person next to him was eating. He ate it without being entirely sure what it was. It was good. He felt slightly better. A young man sat down beside him. The young man was approximately his age, well-dressed, with an open face and easy manner. He spoke Spanish. This was, in the circumstances, an extraordinary relief. The relief of a person who has been drowning and has found something to hold. The young man said, "You look lost." Santiago said, "I am trying to get to Egypt." The young man looked at him, with the mild interest of someone encountering a problem he finds solvable. He said, "Egypt is far, but Tangier is a place where things can be arranged. I know the routes. I know the people who know the routes. Where are you from?" They talked. Santiago told him about Spain, about the sheep, about the recurring dream, about the pyramids. He told it the way a young man tells a story when he is relieved to be talking to someone in his own language, with more detail and more trust than the situation perhaps warranted. The young man listened with interest and sympathy. He said, "I can help you find a guide, someone who knows the desert roads. Come with me." Santiago went with him. They walked through the streets of Tangier, and the young man talked about the city, the markets, the routes, the particular geography of the region. He was knowledgeable and easy, and Santiago found himself relaxing into the conversation, forgetting the fear that had gripped him at the port. They stopped at a market. The young man said, "Wait here a moment. I need to speak to someone." Santiago waited. He waited for a long time. The young man did not come back. Santiago stood in the market and understood, slowly and then all at once, what had happened. He checked his bag. His money was gone. Not all of it. The young man had not had access to the coins Santiago kept in his belt, the ones from the sale of his flock, but the money he had kept in his bag, the money he had set aside for the journey, for the guides, for the food and shelter of the road to Egypt, was gone. He stood in the market of Tangier, with what remained, and felt something that was beyond fear and beyond anger, a kind of absolute blankness, the feeling of a person whose plan has been completely removed, and who has not yet formed a new one. He thought about going home. The thought was specific and detailed and attractive in a way that comfortable things are attractive to people who are very uncomfortable. He thought about the boat back to Spain, about the familiar roads of Andalusia, about the merchant's daughter, who had smiled at him. He thought about starting over, buying new sheep, being more careful this time, building the flock back up. He could do that. It was possible. The stones were in his pocket. He took them out and held them, the black and the white, yes and no. He thought, should I go home? He did not ask the stones. He had promised himself to make his own decisions first. He stood in the market and made his own decision. He was not going home. He was in Africa. He had been robbed. He had almost no money. He did not speak the language. He did not know anyone. And he was not going home. He looked around the market. He noticed now that the shock was fading, an extraordinary place. The colors were specific and vivid, spices in shades of red and gold and brown, that did not exist in Andalusia, fabrics and patterns he had never seen, the particular quality of light, in a North African market at midday. The sounds were the sounds of commerce, in a language he did not understand, which gave them a kind of abstract musicality. The smells were the smells of food and animals and incense and the sea not far away. He thought, I am in Africa. Whatever else has happened, I am in Africa. He found a crystal merchant's stall. The merchant was an older man with a careful face, not suspicious exactly, but the face of someone who has dealt with many people over many years, and has learned to read them quickly. He looked at Santiago and waited. Santiago looked at the crystalware on display. It was beautiful, delicate glasses and bowls and decanters, arranged with the care of someone who takes genuine pride in the objects they sell. Santiago picked up a glass and turned it in the light. He said, in Spanish, "These are beautiful." The merchant did not understand Spanish, but he understood the gesture, the way Santiago held the glass, the expression on his face. He nodded. Santiago stood at the merchant's stall for a while, not buying anything, simply standing. The merchant did not ask him to move. There was something in his manner that permitted this, a quality of patience, that was not indifferent but was not pressing either. After a while the merchant brought out 2 glasses of tea. He offered one to Santiago. Santiago accepted. They sat together at the stall, the Andalusian boy who had been robbed and the crystal merchant, who did not speak his language, and drank tea and watched the market move around them, and said nothing because there was nothing they could say. Santiago thought, this is the beginning, not the end. The beginning. The soul of the world, Melchizedek had told him, is nourished by people's happiness. And the treasure at the end of his journey was still there, wherever there was, waiting. The robbery was not a sign that he was wrong. It was a test, the kind of test that the universe administers to people who claim they are pursuing their personal legend, to see if they mean it. He meant it. He held the tea glass, and looked at the market and decided, sitting on that stool in Tangier, that he was going to work for the crystal merchant until he had enough money to continue the journey. He pointed to himself. He pointed to the stall. He made a gesture that he hoped conveyed the concept of working in exchange for money. The merchant looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. It was not the road to Egypt. It was not the next step of the journey as Santiago had imagined it. It was a detour, a delay, a going sideways when he needed to go forward. But it was something. It was a direction. It was the next thing. He put the tea glass down and stood up, and began to arrange the crystalware on the display table, and the merchant watched him, and the market moved around them, both, and the journey, changed, rerouted, humbled, continued. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Chapter 3 of The Alchemist, by Paulo Coelho. In Chapter 4, Santiago works at the crystal merchant's shop. He learns the merchant's story, a man who has dreamed all his life of making the pilgrimage to Mecca and has never gone. He learns something important about the difference between the dream and the journey, and about what people do when they are afraid to pursue the one thing they most want. And he begins to understand what the soul of the world is actually asking of him. Chapter 4 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.